I think I watched them yesterday. It was a great result. I think they beat who did they beat?
I'll tell you.
Essendon. Was it Essendon they beat?
I'll tell you.
By about 60 points to 30.
You're more up on the AFL than I am, Paul.
Well, I mean, since going to to the Marvel Stadium with Stacey and the Dude, it's nice to see how our adopted team is doing.
Yeah, so St Kilda beat St Kilda. Oh no, that's the match coming up. So let me just see what happened before. So St Kilda, I have my little thing here. Must be at the top of the list.
Aye.
Where are you, St Kilda?
I'm sure it was Monday.
Yeah, they beat Essendon, 68 to 33.
Oh, what a hammering. And it was a brilliant game.
Yeah. Oh, we're live. All right.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, one of our forwards is a guy called Paddy.
Oh, Wagon, his last name.
Yeah. He's a big, huge dude. And he keeps.
Yeah, do you have that expression in the UK for a police vehicle where they capture people and throw them in the back? You call it a paddy wagon?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yep. Not often been in them.
That's good.
But in my youth, I did have one or two visits to Lansdowne Police Station.
Free rides.
Yeah. It was quite funny because to tell you the truth, Lansdowne Police Station, you get booked in obviously by the policeman. This was when I was about 13 and 14, just getting up to hijinks and stuff, But it was funny because the guy on the desk was actually one of my dad's guitar pupils. Hi, Mike. Oh, not you again. So it culminated in a visit one day to Lansdowne Police Station to speak with the chief of police there, and get told, this, you're gonna have to change your ways. You are very, very fortunate.
Look how you turned out now, Paul. See, obviously, good advice, right? So
yeah. No, it was funny because going way back to old school reports, there's one that I always laugh at that my mum's got. It says about the fact that when I was about 8 or 9, fairly attentive of school, and she marked me well for needlework. Sewing and stuff, But then in the comments section, Paolo is doing quite well, but tends to get involved in playground arguments.
Says a lot, really. I think
so, yeah.
I just learned a lot about you just from that one statement. So.
Anyway, who have we got with us today? Can you see all the chat there?
Let me.
I don't know if you can see it, but I don't know that you're able to comment. Anyway, we've got Alice Irvin. Hi, Alice. Sean Maroney. We've got Jane Sharp.
Oh,
Dark Side of the Moon.
Oh yes, I can see them now.
Jojo Mary, and Sharon's here.
Miss Sunshine.
Yeah, and Diane. Looking forward tonight. Diane and Jane are doing a thing with the Centre for the Integrity of Forensic Science. They're speaking to the director of that. The thing that Jerry and Dean set up.
Yes. I'm very familiar with it.
Yep. So they're doing a thing tonight at 8 o'clock. Your time. Yes, my time. Yeah. Carl Mann. Hi, Carl, and hi to Victor Davis. Hello. Who else have we got? Yep, I think that's Henry as well. My goodness. Hi there, Henry.
See, Paul, you attract the higher class of audience, right? So,
you see what he put?
Hang on, I've got to scroll down the screen a bit.
There we go. I'll show you. Start writing for police reports.
Yeah. God. Yeah. You pay by the report. That'd be an expensive exercise. So,
yeah. Nobody's ever wondered why I ended up in Scotland. It's because it's hundreds of miles away from Gloucestershire. Yeah,
one step ahead.
I think my dad and various uncles were very keen, very pleased to see me exported.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like you've calmed down anyway.
Yes, certainly have. Yes. So anyway, Mark, how's it going? I mean, personally, it's still difficult waking up in the morning. You know, I used to wake up in the morning. There'd be a message from the dude, and it's not there. You know, it's.
Yeah, it's without overplaying the issue. It is really bizarre to. I can't really get my head around him not being around, and because it wasn't like because I live in Australia, it wasn't like I would see him every day, but
Sure.
he was in my life almost every day.
Yeah.
And I obviously met him many times, and we had a lot of fun together. But he was more of our communication was by electronic means,
Yes.
So I kind of half think he's just on holiday somewhere.
Yes.
So, which is not to underplay the seriousness of what's happened, but I think that's a nice thing in many ways, because the fact that he permeates us so much tells you how powerful his presence was and continues to be. And it's a tribute to him that he is so inside of us all. And so that's a nice thing. Yeah.
I remember the first time I actually got to see the full sort of, it would have, I'm going to say at least the last half hour, certainly the last half hour of Brendan's interview with Regan Fassbender, that the court never got to see. And it was on Aaron Keller's channel of, the Law and Order channel that Aaron Keller does, And I remember watching that. And okay, I'd had a couple of drinks, And it struck me just how desperate that situation was. I mean, there's me, as a youngster going to the police. Oh, hi, Mike, okay, we'll get, phone for parents. They come and get you. And, eventually a chat with the chief of police, But there, this is so serious, what they did to Brendan. And I was really, really upset, shall we say. And it was late at night. And I tried to get hold of Carla. Couldn't get hold of her, but I got hold of the dude, and it was amazing, because he was like, I know this is going to sound a bit wishy-washy, but he was such a comfort to speak to about it and to explain, and I was quite upset when I thought about what had happened to Brendan, and it was a great chat, and I often used to remind him about that,
Yeah, he had a really good way of gathering the facts of the matter and drilling down onto another plane and bringing back from that a perspective on something beyond the obvious, if I can say it like that. So chatting to him about stuff. The other thing I really liked about Richard was, it's an old saying, 2 ears, 1 mouth, right?
Yeah.
Which means that listening is more important than speaking. And whilst Richard was a good speaker, loud and boisterous, he was an extremely good listener as well.
Yeah.
And he welcomed the views of others to add to the body of knowledge, but also to add to his own knowledge as well. So
I always remember the last thing really that we did with Jane and Linda and myself. We did that.
Yes, I saw a little bit of that.
That sort of mastermind thing. And at first he wasn't keen on the idea. He wasn't keen on the idea because he could see that the fact that I was deliberately getting the answer wrong when the first round of questions, it was entitled on the sheet, the answer is Wisconsin, but and he wasn't sure about this, but even then, he was prepared to do it. And in the end, I think it came out really well. It was good fun. He enjoyed it. And I know that Jane and Linda did,
Yeah, it amazed me how he tolerated you so much. I just thought, I would have sent that cop around to arrest you.
I know. Well,
for abuse, for assault with a deadly mouth. Right?
Yeah. Well, can you remember every time I used to ask him to stop to take a photograph? You know, and he would stop and he would smile and he got quite irritated because he said, "It's really pulling my muscles on my face, smiling all the time." You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes he would suggest that, you know, he actually wanted another one taken by raising his middle finger in my direction. I've got a few photographs of that. But anyway, who else is here? We've got T1. Yeah, hi T1. Yeah, much love and respect. Thank you.
Everyone who's been saying hello. I can see you on the chat. It's a bit tricky for me to type at the same time. So
sure.
Yeah.
We've got Shaz. I don't recall. We've got some guy from Africa. Didn't one of the Dasses hide under the laundry? I think that was Earl Avery. Apparently, at some point tried to hide, but I don't know why. But and then we've also got somebody rather cheekily called Alessandra saying, "I like the shirt, Dad." Yeah.
That's someone who knows you well. So yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay, Ali. Yes, he did. The dude abided.
Yeah.
First of all, I saw you post on Facebook. Was it today?
Yes, I did.
Some correspondence from Mr. Avery, which was very interesting. Can you remember what he was saying? I distinctly remember he said he's going to say something about the attorneys at some point.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what that's about.
No, I don't either.
So that'll be a discussion or something for another day if it happens at all. But basically, that Stephen, as you can imagine, he's gets a lot of letters and be they letters or postcards or other communications, and it's been quite the job for him to reply to that, and especially it's in lockdown, he doesn't have any visitors, hasn't had any visitors for 4 or 5 months now, as haven't any of the prisoners. So he decided, which we thought was a good idea, that he would write a general thank you and note to all the supporters in one. Yeah. And that was a way of him really expressing how he feels. And he's Stephen, as you can tell from the content of that card, it was a card that opened up. Mm-hmm. Stephen's a very personable and emotional man. He's very warm and loving. That's the type of man that he is, even though he's got this sort of, seemingly tough exterior. Deep down, he's a softie. And so when you sit back and read what he wrote and the way he writes things, you'll learn a lot about the character that is Stephen Avery, and I can confirm that that's exactly how he is. And he means those things. He's not just writing words for the sake of trying to say something nice. That's how he genuinely feels, and he's extremely grateful to all the supporters and to people who write to him and help. So obviously some send some money in and other things, but that's not why he's doing that. But he's very grateful for everyone who believes in him, especially. And that was a relatively easier way of him communicating that message back.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Where did he send that card to? Do you know?
Yes, he sent it initially to Sandra.
Right.
And it was a plan. He was going to send it to Sandra because it's quicker to get it to her than to me. And she scanned and sent it to me. Yeah. And then I posted it. That's how it happened. Yeah. So. And
how is Sandra doing?
She's fine. I actually spoke to her later after that today.
Yeah.
She was, I guess, what time now? She'd be snoozing over there now, I think. What is it? It's about 7 a.m. I think in the morning.
It is, yes. Yeah.
So she's busy. She's a popular girl for supporters to make contact with and chat about stuff and send messages, etc. But she's so devoted to Stephen and all the wrongful convictions, sorts of things that go on, and she's just a wonderful human being. What can I say? That's what she is, just a wonderful human being, very loving and very thoughtful and caring person.
Absolutely, absolutely. I was gonna mention I saw a tweet by Kim Ducat, obviously.
Ducat.
Ducat, cousin of, featured heavily in both series, both series 1 and series 2. And it was an interesting comment. She said that she really wants to speak to Kathleen Zellner about things. And somebody had put, email Kathleen Zellner. I've tried that. Phone her. I've tried that. And I can't help thinking that, I'm sure Kim's got plenty that she needs to say to not just Kathleen Zellner, but the rest of the world, as do quite a few other people. But maybe at the moment, it's just a case of having to be patient.
Yes, I'd say so. It's a bit like, the finger in the dike, right?
Yeah.
I think when this thing starts to unravel, which it will, there'll be lots of, extra phone calls going on. And if no one wants my advice, but if I was a fringe person in this game of secrecy and mischief, I'd be putting my hand up and letting it be known right now. You either want to be caught, you don't want to be caught in the middle of the crossfire when it all falls apart. So there is some merit in if you're either a law enforcement officer or someone who knows more than they've said so far, it will be in their interest, in my view, to be speaking sooner rather than later. So that's what I would say. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that as well, I think from our point of view, I'll give you an example. I recently went back down to Cheltenham to visit my mum. Spent a few days down there, and on the way, Eunice was saying, what's the latest situation with Steve and Brendan, and I said, well, explained, we're just waiting on this Court of Appeals to look at both the issues, all of the issues with the CD, the bones, the various affidavits that she's got, that Judge Sukovich has tried to be so obstructive about, but now finally we've got past Sukovich, at least for now, and we're headed in a good direction. And she said, "Oh, I must watch Making a Murderer when I get back," and she's watched all 20 in over the course of like a week and a half. And you can't help, anybody watching it can see straight away. You don't need to be a rocket science to see the corruption that's going on, but it's not as if Kathleen Zellner can come out with the statement, there's huge corruption, the FBI need to get involved now, sort it all out. That's not how it's going to work.
No, and it would be very improper.
Yeah. So
it would be and she wouldn't, and it would be very improper of her to do that. Corruption is a matter of fact, not a matter of emotion. We might feel like there's corruption.
Yeah.
We might think there's corruption, but to say there is corruption, you need facts for that.
Yes.
And when you're a lawyer, especially an officer of the court like Kathleen Zellner is, but unlike some other legal people we know, she's going to abide by the principles of, presumption of innocence and so on.
Yeah.
And the facts, when they do unfold, will speak for themselves. And that might seem a little bit sort of straight down the line, but that's how she needs to play this game. It's a shame that people like Ken Kratz didn't do the same, or the sorts of things he was prepared to take away Stephen and Brendan's presumption of innocence. That was not a problem for him. Fortunately, I'm sure Ken Kratz, his style of being a lawyer is not the common one, but there's enough of it around to trouble us all. So, yeah.
Yes, yeah. Unfortunately, there's every time I watch a new documentary series. Recently, I watched Outcry And if I hadn't watched Making a Murderer and all the other Netflix documentaries, I would have been horrified at what I saw. But you know what? I was kind of expecting some of the stuff, some of the wonkiness. I was expecting because I've seen how this system is designed to work. It's designed to secure. You know, they asked a police officer, a lieutenant, under oath, what is your main function in an investigation? He said, to secure a conviction.
Yeah. You
know, and then they're saying, well, does that not have to be based on finding evidence and facts? You know, that is your job as an investigator, not to secure. But that's the way the system's designed. And once they secure that system, then the system is designed to maintain that conviction at all costs, isn't it?
Yes, because they need to, because if they don't, it exposes what happened in the first place. It's interesting you should raise that point. I listened today by chance to some Freedom of Information request recordings to Calumet County that were forgive me if I've got this wrong, but it's part of AC Rookie post on Twitter, and there was a whole series of telephone or radio calls between police officers and Calumet Dispatch and in between officers on the 10th of November. Now, the 10th of November was, I think I've got that right, 2005, was 5 days after they discovered the vehicle on the Avery property. Yep. Anyway, I'm not going to do it justice by trying to explain it all, except to say you can tell just by the way the conversation's unfolding that they're like they've won the $1 million lottery, that they now know that in their minds that they've got Stephen Avery's blood in the car and on the key. You know, they're celebrating like it was this massive victory. Yep. They also make admissions by a number of officers, including Jerry Pargle, who was the sheriff at the time, that they found human bones and body parts in significant quantity in the quarry, right? Yeah. Which you would, if you then go fast forward 18 months or so, or 15 months to Stephen's trial there, that's the 20 seconds of, I don't need to talk more than that about it. Yeah. So they make massive admissions about that. And also there was an interesting recording where some citizen rang up and spoke to the dispatch person, a lady, I think the dispatch person was, saying, I really think you should be looking into some of the cops here, that there's some planted evidence for sure, blah, blah, blah. And irrespective of that could have been a crackpot or anybody, the lady on dispatch was so dismissive of the possibility of that it could be anything other than what they'd already concluded it was, which was Stephen Avery, that it just goes to this heart about the presumption of innocence. No one was interested in anyone other than nailing Stephen Avery, and we know that's because he had the civil suit on foot at the time. Yeah. So when you build a whole environment and a whole sort of culture of we're right, you're wrong, you know, and clearly at least in Manitowoc, it's probably true in Calumet, but in Manitowoc there was definitely a circle of a power circle there, you know, at the top. Then the sad part about all that is not just what's happened to Stephen, but you can't trust them on anything. You know, as soon as trust is broken at that level, you go, well, what can I trust them about anything? And the citizens of Manitowoc don't deserve that, nor do the good officers of the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department or the police department, who are sort of, you know, crowded with this. Obviously, the great majority of people are good, but this bad behavior, this rotten apple approach, you know, has this really negative aspect on the whole of the community there.
That's right. I mean, I remember when Pete Bates was looking into the idea of running as sheriff. And for Manitowoc, and he was quoted as saying that he didn't believe that there was, you know, this culture of corruption within the sheriff's department. It was just, as he said, just one or two bad actors. Yeah. They, you know, but these bad actors give the whole lot. a really bad name, don't they? Talking about presumption of innocence, as you know, one of the the District 2 Court of Appeals judges, I believe there's 3 at the moment. I think they've added a new one, but I can't remember.
There's 4. There's 4 of them.
Yeah, P.J. Riley, Lisa Neubauer, Mark Gundrum, and I'm trying to think who else.
Jeffrey Davis.
Yes, yeah. Well, Mark Gundrum, of course, is famously, and I actually took a little, I put on YouTube a little clip of Mark Gundrum saying, Mark Gundrum, where's Stephen Avery's presumption of innocence when he says that that whilst you want to give Steve the benefit of the doubt, it's morally impossible to do.
I mean, seriously, that's just such an awful thing to say.
Yeah.
I just on my external observation of Mark Gundrum, I think he, at the time of Stephen's first release, was trying to do the right thing.
Very much so. Yeah.
And as best as I can tell from what I see, he was doing his best to do the right thing. But his ability when Stephen was arrested to suddenly automatically conclude that Stephen Avery wasn't still deserving of the presumption of innocence is frightening. His best statement was, well, he's still entitled to the presumption of innocence. Let's see what comes of this. But he was prepared to make a public statement that took away the presumption of innocence, which was very hurtful because Mark Gundrum was well respected in his work, and I'm not trying to diminish that in any way for him. But to jump to a conclusion that the presumption of innocence was now dissipated just because Stephen Avery had been arrested for a different crime, think, whoa, why are you doing that?
Yeah. Have you learned nothing from the 85 wrongful conviction?
I know. I mean, and law is his background. He was a politician, of course, but I think law was always his background. And now he's a member of the District 2 Court of Appeals.
Yeah.
So I think given Mr. Gundrum's close association with Stephen at a professional political level and the sorts of things that have happened since that, I think he'll likely, if he was appointed to hear Stephen's appeal documentation, I think he would have to recuse himself because of that relationship. I don't know, but it seems to me like he would.
Yes. I think that's the general consensus, isn't it? That he would.
Which would lead us to the remaining 3, I presume 3 judges deal with it. That's Lisa Neubauer and Paul Riley and Jeffrey Davis. So Jeffrey Davis, by the way, is a fairly recent appointment by Governor Evers.
Yeah.
They get appointed by the governor if someone resigns mid-election term. And Paul Riley was elected.
Yep.
Jeffrey Davis hasn't faced an election.
Yep.
Mark Gundrum was initially appointed.
Yep.
And so was Lisa Neubauer, if that's how you pronounce her name.
That's right, yeah. Well, of course, the situation was that the Wisconsin Supreme Court had a vacancy for which both Brian Hagedorn and Lisa Neubauer went for that particular post. And Brian Hagedorn, who apparently was very favorable to Steve, he ended up at the Supreme Court. And of course, Lisa Neubauer is still where he is. But of course,
I think Lisa Neubauer is also the chief judge of the Court of Appeals across the state. I think she has an overarching role over other districts. I'm not sure about that, but I think that's true.
Although the 2 times when the case has been remanded back from the Court of Appeals District 2, it's been Paul Riley that's done that.
Yeah.
So
it's encouraging that's the case because you really want these people to take away, to just here's the law, here are the entitlements. Yeah. Has Stephen Avery via Kathleen Zellner presented sufficient evidence to warrant an evidentiary hearing or even a trial? They can go straight to that or even release him. I'm not going to have a judgment about that, but based on the presentation of evidence there's at least one of those three things that must happen. And you don't want politics or, whatever the little arrangements are to get in the way of proper justice. And so it's going to be a really interesting outcome on many fronts. For example, if they grant an evidentiary hearing, let's just deal with that one, that will restore a lot of confidence in the system.
Yep.
Right. But equally, if they don't,
yeah,
that's going to just perpetuate the problem, because by any reasonable measure, there is no way in the world that Stephen Avery isn't entitled to an evidentiary hearing, because the presumption of the evidence being accurate is in Stephen's side. His side is entitled to the benefit that the evidence is valid, and the evidentiary hearing is the forum in which the truth of that evidence is debated and examined under oath. So it's not like the claims being made for Stephen via Kathleen are frivolous or without merit, so the evidentiary hearing is important not only for Stephen, but for the respect people will have for the court process. So, yeah.
Yeah, somebody apparently sent some stuff to Mark Gundrum because of the fact that he is now one of the two district judges. And it was tweeted about yesterday and mentioned by, amongst others, the Scales of Injustice, which is Tracy's Strunsey. Yeah. And what was interesting was, basically all that the courts have said is, it's basically the legal term. I can't remember what it is, but it's basically a fact of it's been minuted. It's been noted. But there's nothing going to come from this. Somebody was hoping to try and and show Mark Gundrum that they really do need to. He really does need to to do the right thing this time around.
Yeah, I'm sure that was well intended, but it's not the right thing to do.
It's not. Because I think it was Kathleen Zellner herself that said don't and so the other people like Steve Drisenlaw and Nyrider, Jerry and Dean, don't go contacting these people. Leave them to do their. Oh, that's what I was going to say as well. You remember, obviously, Mark Gundrum, him talking about the fact that whilst you want to give Steve the benefit of the doubt, remember even Steve Glynn is quoted as saying that when Steve was arrested, he felt like his whole world had fallen down, that he'd been defending this guy. And here he was, capable of this murder of a photographer, and basically it was in a Mega Lawyers item where he's talking about his worst experience. And that was one of them, the fact that.
Seriously, it's like, that's really disappointing when that happens, because you try to have regard for these people as being, believers in the principles of justice, one of those being, of course, the presumption of innocence. And just because he gets arrested, that presumption of innocence allegedly disappears? Really? Seriously, how can that be? How can you suddenly be this, upright, forthright, sort of moral lawyer and suddenly do that? I find that maybe it's not a very kind thing today. So maybe he was concerned that his yet to be paid fee might be at risk. That might have been something, at least if not at the top, somewhere near the top of his concern at the time. So because they did end up getting Stephen to agree to a fairly pitiful settlement of the civil suit. So
I can't help thinking about the political aspect to this. I found it, Steve Glynn talks about the fact that it was stunning how everybody jumped. Steve Glynn himself, in Making a Murderer Series 1, says it's stunning how everybody jumped to the conclusion that Stephen Avery was guilty. Well, yeah, Steve, you're one of them. But I can't help thinking that in some cases it's almost like a political thing. We saw, for example, in the Ken Kratz sexting scandal, this guy who was this great attorney who had done the county such good. The bottom line was when it came to the sexting scandal, it was somebody that leaked it to the press. Ryan Foley did not somehow come across the sexting scandal just by accident. Ken Kratz is right about, so there's clearly this sort of, when it comes to the politics, people are very fickle, I think. And I think that's what Ken was doing.
And wasn't Ken Kratz looking to run for politics at the time?
Yeah. He was
so if you were running against him, or you knew someone who you liked was running against him, that'd be a nice little thing to have revealed. I mean, it doesn't change the fact that it's true what happened, but the disclosure of it would be understandable.
Yeah, I mean, I just remember I once sent Ken Kratz a tweet, and I put, "Could you tell us about your run for Congress in 2008? When did your sexting scandal break? How long were you able to cover it up? When did you have to resign as DA? How's your career been doing?"
Did he reply going, "Dear Paul"?
"Dear Paul, will you buy my book? No, Ken." I once said, if it's a cold winter, it could be useful to put on a bonfire. And he replied, "Well, I'll put you down as a maybe then." It's quite funny. But no, what I was going to say was that after I posted that little clip of Mark Gundrum, and the title of the video was something like, where's the presumption of innocence here?
Yeah.
And do you know who got commented? I don't think it was on that video. I think it was on the next video that I did. I got a comment from, of all people, his daughter, Bernadette Gundrum.
Oh, okay.
Who then went on to unfortunately, I didn't realize that people, once they've put a comment on your YouTube channel, I knew I could delete comments, but I didn't realize people could delete their own comments somehow naively. So I never screenshot any of what she'd sent to me, and it was a Sunday afternoon when this message came in, and I'm busy out teaching, driving, so I mean I couldn't stop to reply to her, and I wanted to get a reply to her pretty quickly because, well, first of all, what she wrote was that basically I'm being unfair because it you're not giving my dad the benefit of the doubt on this. Okay. Fair enough. Maybe I'm not. And basically, and I can't remember exactly how she put it, but basically she was saying that everybody was caught up in this case. Everybody, in effect, thought Steve must be guilty. When he was arrested, everybody kind of jumped on the bandwagon and thought that this was the case, that it's he's clearly guilty, when in actual fact, as we're discovering, certainly not the case. And it's a shame I never kept kept a record of it, because I remember getting in touch with the dude and at the time Chad Keller, and they both messaged her back, and put comments back, but unfortunately they didn't survive. But basically to say, sorry, but we're going to stick by our guns here. Your dad, who is a high political figure, he was instrumental in creating the Avery Task Force, wasn't he? He was the one that was going to pay Steve $450,000. He was the one that then, in an interview, because it's politically in his benefit to sort of back this arrest of Stephen Avery.
I find it hard to reconcile that fact, because the principles that Mark Gundrum espoused after Stephen's first exoneration were very well based, and they were, I thought, very thoughtful, and what you would hope one of your elected politicians would be like. So, I don't know that a leopard can change his spots that much. I'm not sure why suddenly he almost undid all that good work that he had done as a moral character in the Houses of Parliament in Madison. I just don't understand what changed him to that. Maybe he got caught up in the moment. Maybe he regrets that comment. I don't know. But it was the most inappropriate thing to say. The presumption of innocence isn't a discretionary thing. It's a fact. You're entitled to it. And it's there for a good reason. And him saying that, someone who everyone respected, to say that, oh, it's hard to give him the benefit of the doubt, or what were his actual words, is a terrible thing for a high officer of the Parliament or of the Wisconsin judiciary to say.
Yeah.
I just don't reconcile why he said that. I don't think he's a bad guy, and I just don't know why he felt it was necessary to say that. Maybe there was just an environment of whatever going around him. But that's why you have hopefully intelligent people saying, well, yeah, we are disappointed to learn of this news, and it's not what we expected to see, but we still have to wait until the courts deal with the matter. That's kind of how you should say it, something like that anyway.
Yeah.
Rather than to put any doubt on Stephen's character or him not being entitled to the presumption of innocence.
Yeah, I mean, if you remember, we even had Governor Jim Doyle saying of the Avery Task Force and the Avery Bill, suggesting maybe they shouldn't have named it then, or maybe that's they're regretting having named it the Avery Task Force.
Well, yeah, if they believe Stephen had committed this crime, not that they should have believed that without a proper trial, but if they believed he did, you can understand why they were potentially embarrassed by the name.
Yeah.
Right. That's not to say it's fair, but you can understand why they would think that. But it's again another rush to judgment.
Yeah.
Committing the same things that had happened previously. So that's disappointing. You think, as you said, 5 or 10 minutes ago, what did they learn from this experience? Why did they go and do that? And anyway, yep.
And also, when it comes to all this shady stuff, like for example, Pargo with his phone conversation about lots of bones and body parts. Little did they know that in December 2015. Making a murderer was going to come along. It was never on their radar. They just assumed that they could get away with all of this, didn't they? Yeah,
and that was a reasonable assumption, given we look at it through the prism of hindsight, and they just thought, oh, this is just another day in Manitowoc County, right?
Yeah.
So we've got a problem. Let's fix it, boys. That's kind of what it was, and. The proverbial hit the fan in December 2015, and it's been flailing out there ever since, for the last 4.5 years. And it's not going to go away, it's not going to go away at all. So,
yeah. And
and we can see also, Paul, like that. This is old news, of course, but even a cool head that examines evidence, like for example the large missing parts of dispatch calls on Friday the 4th of November, the missing pieces and patching together of flyover video.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that necessary? The unwillingness to release the RAV for further and detailed examination. Why is that necessary? If it's Stephen so guilty, let it be out there. I mean, their behavior both at the time and subsequently just demonstrates what effectively is a contrived investigation for a predetermined end result, and that was to arrest and convict Stephen Avery. And even Jerry Pargle's personal activities in walking inside the restaurant where the jurors were on the first night of deliberations. I mean, he should be sacked for doing that. But no, that's just, that's what we do. We walk in there and we, put the bejesus up everybody else. And we know we know firsthand, I can tell you firsthand from a number of jurors, that they said that we voted the way we did because we were threatened.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jerry Pargle's involvement in that to the role he played was part of that. Now, that you might say, well, hey, that's a bit weak in character for jurors to be threatened, but you live in a community, and they were told by a number of hot-headed related jurors, including the foreman, that if you don't believe Stephen Avery committed this crime, you're saying the police did it, or the law enforcement did it. And if you say that, well, good luck in this town if you vote that way.
Yeah.
And that was remembering, of course, that we had in the first deliberations, we had what did we have? We had 7 not guilties, 3 guilties and 2 undecided. Well, you tell me, with no new evidence, how you turn 7 not guilties into guilties without significant coercion. And the result that they gave up in Stephen's, mutilation of a corpse was, again, publicly stated by a number of jurors, was their way of trying to mitigate the pain that they felt in voting guilty, thinking that if they did that, Stephen will get a new trial. Well, we know that didn't happen. Well, not yet anyway. So. Well,
and isn't it interesting that when they actually handed back the bones, it was just before the Supreme Court decided not to take on Stephen's appeal, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was almost as if they knew the Supreme Court weren't going to give any relief to Stephen Avery. So we'll just hand the bones back to the family right now.
Contrary to statute, contrary to a specific order of Judge Willis that Jerry Buting asked for at the end of Stephen's trial. They think they're bigger than the law. That's the thing, and now they are claiming, it wasn't human bones they gave back. Well, you know what, really, Mrs. Holbach, were you happy? Here's the question under oath, Mrs. Holbach, when the state gave you back these bones, did you believe that they were your daughters, right? There's 2 possible answers, yes or no. Yeah. If it's yes, okay, that's what she believed, right? And if it's no, the next question would be, well, why did you accept them if they weren't your daughters, right? It's just a really ugly look, all of that stuff. Yeah. And they're doing it under this window of not knowing what we now know any number of years onward from that this thing would get exposed. They thought this was just easy stuff. And so that behavior, Stephen Avery matters are very up front and center, but I think it's fairly evident from what other things we've learned that this is the sort of behavior that has been going on in Manitowoc County for quite some time. Yeah. And no doubt Calumet as well. So.
Yeah, I get the impression that there are 1 or 2 people there that do take their job seriously. I remember reading, the interview of Bill Tyson. Is it Bill Tyson? Who was referred to as Bulldog Tyson, I believe, because he was determined that if he was going to have to chaperone Lincoln Colburn, he was going to do a proper job of it, But it only takes 1 or 2, and everybody else has to fall in line, don't they? Because it's the police and all companies.
And keeping in mind at the time, always looking back as if you were there at the time, they would not have any idea what this was going to be 10 years hence, right? Yeah. Facebook hadn't even been quote unquote invented at that time, right? Yeah. Let alone all the other social media platforms and the ability of the community, the citizenry, if you like, to communicate and bring these things. Streaming platforms like Netflix didn't exist. A show like this would have to struggle and try to get especially a long show like this with 10 episodes to start with, would struggle with a normal network to get any release on it, right? Because one, it's too long for them, and secondly, it was probably too politically hot for them. But the existence of all the streaming services and the multitude of channels that now exist and the social media platforms all provided an environment in which this comfort position with doing the wrong thing back in 2005, 6, 7, and previously, no longer was not so comfortable. And that's the big difference, because we see it through the prism of today, but their actions were being taken during a prism of 2005 that was, if you like, not in their minds capable of being exposed, and clearly we now know that's not the case, and thank God for the filmmakers that they persevered.
Yes, one wonders about the assurances that people have been given, because I remember in one conversation, I've mentioned this before, but in one conversation with Robert Herman, he sort of stopped me mid-sentence and he said, "Listen, Paul, Stephen Avery," or no, he didn't say Stephen, he said, "Mr. Avery, I can assure you, Mr. Avery will spend the rest of his life in prison." And that to me meant, either he's been given assurances above the food chain, or simply it's just a line that he's regurgitated over and over again, that he says it, or maybe a mixture of the two. But I did take that as meaning, I know that there are systems in place, or that he's been given assurances that we're gonna keep a lid on this, Yeah,
I think you're right. Because a proper independent law enforcement officer who had no axe to grind other than the truth would say, unless there's newly discovered evidence or other persons coming by, I see very little opportunity for Mr. Avery to get out of prison. Yeah. Right? But he's making this definitive statement as if the justice system is no longer available to Stephen Avery.
Yeah.
And that tells you that they were getting some sort of comfort in past behaviors, that there's no way they're going to let him out, right? And that's disgusting.
Yeah.
The justice is just as much about releasing people as it is incarcerating them. And the Stephen Avery case is, and of course Brendan and Teresa, the Stephen Avery case is like the pinnacle of behavior that epitomizes what you don't want a justice system to be.
Yep.
So, it's awful. I feel really bad for all the officers who are good cops, who join up into the profession with honourable intentions and with a desire to do the right thing, and they're corralled with this bunch of bad cops, and you can't get away from it. So.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's made clear to them, isn't it? That you have to go along with this. I mean, obviously we read, don't we, about Kousserik in the Wrecking Crew, the John Farrat book, about how Kousserik, rather than sort of punish, if you like, officers when they do something wrong, and write it on their record, he would brush it under the carpet, because then it meant at some future date you owe them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly the case.
Yeah.
So,
listen, Mark, that's nearly an hour, would you believe, in next to no time.
Yeah, it doesn't take long, does it?
I know.
Yeah. So, yeah.
So I'm going to say, Cheery, I'm going to go and have my lunch. And I don't know, have you had your tea yet, your supper yet?
Yes, I have. It's 10:30 in the evening here on the east coast of Australia. So I'm just itching to travel. I'm not allowed to leave the country. We're not allowed to leave. And hopefully that'll change. I mean, other countries recommend that you don't travel, but they don't absolutely stop you from leaving. But we're not allowed to leave, except in very, very exceptional circumstances, which is causing me a lot of anxiety at the moment. And but anyway, I have to abide by the law. So.
Yeah. I was going to say, unless it's for, I think, an emergency. I mean, obviously, I follow the cricket, and I do know that, for example, the England cricketer Ben Stokes has travelled to New Zealand.
Oh, yeah.
Because his father's not keeping very well. But, it has to be some sort of exceptional circumstance, doesn't it,
Yeah, could you pretend to be my brother
I certainly can. Yes, actually, as far as I'm concerned, the dude was the wee brother, and then Stacey, then it's me, and then you're the oldest brother.
That's right. So I need to go and visit my younger siblings.
Yes.
To make they're caught up in Scotland, trying to get down to Englandshire, and I need to go and help them. So
yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So, yeah.
Anyway, glad you liked the wee video, and we'll.
Yeah, so we've got not this coming Saturday, but the following is the funeral services for Richard, and there'll be a lot to be said at the time. Sure. And I'm very grateful for knowing him, and I'm exceptionally grateful that we did have that very opportune time to spend time with him in Australia with yourself and Stacey and all the supporters here. I mean, at the time you think these things are nice, but you don't realize how significant they are until you get to moments like this. And I think Richard really found a new part of him in doing that travel as well.
Yep. It's funny when you look back on some of the messages that were sent back and forward. You know, it really is quite funny. Look at as I say, looking at what was sent to and from. You know, it's anyway.
If I had my time over again, I would have hired someone to be with us just to video Richard.
Oh,
yes. Just his anxiety to find the next available bottle of Dr. Pepper. That was fun in itself, right? Yep. And why America didn't look why Australia didn't look exactly like America. That was also kind of fun, you know. But it was good, and he's a lovely man, and really pleased that we became friends. So
yeah. Anyway, I think we've covered everything for now. Certainly everything on my list. Is that everything on your list?
Yeah.
For
now.
For
And so it's good night from you.
Well, if you remember the actual. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yes, good news. Yeah. Since I've tried starting to lose weight, I have managed to shed, I think, 4 or 5 pounds already. So
good on you, mate. Congratulations.
So you know, it's coming off slowly but surely. In fact, I've even booked Alessandra to bring her dog around for the weekend, so that I then have to go on long walks with the dog, and that's one of the best ways for me to get some exercise. So I am looking forward to having the the black and white collie.
Yeah, so he'll be taking you for a walk.
He'll be, very much so. Yes, yeah.
Do you don't guide him past the local pub at all at any point in time, do you?
I don't actually know.
I should put that idea in your mind since you're trying to lose a few.
Yeah, I've been very good, but I do believe that next month, instead of regular meetings of the club that I belong to, we're gonna possibly have 1 or 2 meetings of the committee, and it might be somewhere where we might be able to enjoy a couple of
quiet ones,
a couple of drinks, a little bit of libation might be might be consumed, but it's within walking distance.
So, that's always important.
It is, yes.
But or rolling distance, one of those.
That's right. But no, the classic Ericosi ending is.
Well, it's good night from me.
It's good, and it's goodbye from him. And if you haven't done so already,
please hit subscribe.
Thank you very much. Bye,
see you, mate. Take care. Thanks everyone for watching in too. Bye now.
Bye-bye.